Hello, this tutorial is to show you how to use VideoStorm's new SplashTiles Builder tool that allows you to create compelling digital signage quickly and easily. So first, log into your Virtual Matrix Manager or NetPlay Manager and check the firmware version. Make sure that you're running 2.3.0 or later. And if so, you will now see a new link down here called SplashTiles Setup Tool. Go ahead and select that tool, and it's going to open the default SplashTiles screen. The SplashTiles default screen is your dashboard. The dashboard is where it's basically your working copy of the tile set or the slide that you're working on. You can return to the dashboard at any time by simply clicking on the dashboard link up here. Now in the dashboard, you can edit your tiles and move them around. So for instance, you can move them, rearrange them, however you see fit. Simply drag and drop. You can use a pointer on a PC, or if you're using a touch screen, just touch and drag in order to move your tiles. Each one of the tiles in SplashTiles can display a different web feed. So the default that we show here, the one on the left is a Flickr feed showing some scenery pictures. The one right here is a help tile that's basically giving you directions on how to use SplashTiles. Up here we have a weather tile that's giving us a weather forecast for Dallas and current weather. And then down here we have a news tile that I believe this is just Yahoo News. Now the tiles are all size configurable. This is a 2x2, also a 2x2. This is a 1x2, and this is a 1x3. You can create any size tile. You can see that your default grid here is 7 tiles wide by 5 tiles high. You can also change that as well. It will automatically resize to fit the screen. The background color and transparency of that background color is also fully configurable when you add the tile to the system. And finally, the background of the SplashTiles itself, as well as its transparency, is also fully definable, and you can do that up here with the set color. In the set color field, you can define a background color. And then the opacity of that color, and then the pattern of that color that you want to apply. If you wanted to create a fully transparent background, for instance, you would just select any background color, and then apply a 0 opacity, and then just no pattern at all. And it will show up as transparent whenever it's displayed within NetPlay as a pip image or a tiled image. And if you're not happy with any of your tiles, you can always pick them up and throw them in the trash. That's how you get rid of them. And if you ever wanted to go back to your factory default, you can just hit the reset button. Next, I'm going to show you how to add tiles to your dashboard. So you just go up here and click on Add Tiles, and that takes you to a list of all the different tiles that we currently have defined that you can add to your system. So for instance, we could add a clock. So we would just go in and click Clock, and it's going to allow us to select for this tile a background color and an opacity of that background color. This tile obviously has a predefined size, so you won't be able to select that. And you can add as many tiles as you want in that way, and once you click back on Dashboard, you'll see that that tile's been added. And this is a 1x3 tile. You can pick it up and move it wherever you like. One thing to keep in mind with rearranging your tiles is that it rearranges tiles in a left to right, top to bottom standpoint. So you want to keep all your larger tiles together, because, well, for instance, if you did something like this, you'll see that it's going to arrange them in order, but it's not going to fill the gaps, right? So you can't just go and put this in here. So what you want to do is you want to keep larger tiles together in order to make it flow nicely. We're going to try adding a few more tiles of different types. So let's go ahead and add a weather map. And in this tile, we'll call it Test. We're going to give it a size of 2 by 3, and a latitude and longitude, and a zoom parameter. You can see up here that our SplashTiles map documentation tells you how to get the latitude and longitude and the zoom parameter that you'll need. It just describes it really easily. I think this is, well, we'll find out where this is. We'll go ahead and click Add. And then when we go back to the dashboard, we'll see our new weather map show up. And this is Dallas, of course. You see it's a 2 by 3 tile showing basically weather for current weather for Dallas. Let's try adding a commute time. Once again, you'll get the coordinates from Google Maps directly using the documentation. And this is showing going from Dallas to, looks like Red Oak, that it's about 30 kilometers and it's currently showing 25 minutes travel time. You also have the ability to add direct links. So we're going to add a Google link here. Now these, of course, are useful if you have an interactive display. Could be a touch screen, it could be using an air mouse. There's many different ways to interact with your web pages, but in some NetPlay systems you will have an interactive display. So we've given you the capability of adding direct links. Now, we want Google. And this is going to allow us to select an icon for it. I'm sure there's a Google icon in here somewhere, but I'm just going to select this. And you can see it basically created this, which is a link, and it'll take you directly to Google if you click on it. Okay, so I'm going to rearrange these here a little bit, make it a little bit more the way I want it to show up. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to save this. So in order to save this so that you can view it on other displays, just click the Save button and you give it a name. So I'm going to be unoriginal here. Save it. And then if you go to your saved dashboards, you'll see that there's several up here, and the name is the one that we just saved. So if we click on it here, it's going to load it as it in the display mode. So you'll see that in the display mode, there's no more bars up here or buttons, and that you can't drag and drop these things anymore. But they are interactive now, so you can actually change them and drag them around and move them. Fully interactive, like, and if you click on Google, it's going to go to Google, just like you would expect. You click on the weather, it's going to go to, well, I'm not sure what the weather will do. I guess it's not interactive. If you click on your news article, it's going to load up Yahoo News. So this is how you'll normally use the splash tiles. So once you've created them, basically you can display them on any display. It will auto-size to your display. The URL you see up here at the top is how you get to them. So it's always the IP address, SplashTiles, display, slide, and then the name that you saved it as. There are a few other options that you can use in terms of resizing this to a different grid as well. So you'll see here that if I add these two parameters to the URL, xgrid and ygrid, I can actually change the grid, and it's going to display it as a 4x2 in this case, which obviously is only going to show the first two tiles. But it's a way to quickly change the presentation of your SplashTiles slides. Once you have a few tiles defined, now it's time to add them to your NetPlay video system as a source. Now there's no limit to the number of tiles that you can define, although I suppose if you define a ton of them, they won't all fit on one page here. But all you have to do is just go ahead and select the tile, and that will give you the URL. So then you go ahead and copy the URL, and go back to your virtual matrix. In your source setup. And in your source setup, you're going to go ahead and create a new source, and it will be a type web URL. And in that web URL, you basically just paste that URL into it. And that's all you have to do. There is a couple things that you can do if you want to be fancy, and that you can actually define a second stream for it, create a first stream of this resolution and a second stream of this resolution, and then you can use either a totally different URL or just use the same URL and add the X grid equals whatever and the Y grid, and that allows you to get a different display of your slide based upon whether you display it full screen or pipped. And that's typically very useful because when you pip it, it's going to be small on the screen, so you might want to display less of the tiles. And this just allows you to dynamically change the grid so that you'll display less of it. And that's all you have to do. Just save that and update it. And after you reload your system, then you can select your SplashTiles display. Once again, you can have as many of these as you want. Going back to our saved tile sets, which you can always access by going to Save Dashboards. There's a number of things that you can do with these. Obviously, clicking on any of them will pull up a display of that particular slide. But the other things that you can do with them, of course, is when you drag them, you'll see a number of icons down here. Clicking on the View one is just going to pull it up just like clicking would. That's actually what you use on a touch screen in order to get there. The other things that you can do is you can delete them. If you put it over the trash, it'll actually get rid of it entirely. Or you can edit it. If you go here and you put it on the edit, then when you go back to your dashboard, you'll see that your dashboard is now populated with what that tile is, and you can edit it as you see fit. And then once you want to save it again, you just save it and give it the same name, and it will overwrite that tile. Well, that covers all the basics of how to use SplashTiles Builder. A couple other things to keep in mind is that if you define more tiles than will fit on your screen, they just won't be shown. You can always delete some in order to get more working room so that you can see the additional tiles. Once again, obviously you want to keep in mind how the tiles order themselves. It's always left to right and then top to bottom. Once again, if you want to close all your gaps, just keep the big tiles together so that you're not leaving that additional gap. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can actually display anything in these tiles. There are tiles such as the embedded web tile, which is also known as an iframe, and the interactive version of that. In these tiles, you can basically define any web URL that's iframe embeddable and put it into our system, and it will show up in a tile when will be automatically resized for you. There's also the ability to add external control systems like NetPlay system status, the toggle control buttons, and there's also a NetPlay control button, NetPlay command here. These will allow you to do things like select sources directly and actually control your lights, other devices in your system. We are also adding support for different types of slides that you can add to SplashTiles Builder. If you have suggestions for these, just file a support ticket with a feature request, and we will look into creating a tile set that you like. If you have any other questions about SplashTile Builder, please send us an email to support@video-storm.com, and thank you for your time.